Joined by, as some would say, UK MMA royalty in Dan Hardy. So obviously we've got a few of your fighters on this card as well. So how is it looking going into their preparation coming into tonight?
Yeah, really good, really good. We've just picked up the first win. So Josh Hood, he drives over to Colville from Peterborough like 5-6 times a week. He's getting good sessions in. He's improving all the time, and he's just picked up a really good unanimous decision win. And then we've got Ella Beale, she's fighting next, and then Jack Young a little bit later on the card. And everybody's trained really hard. They all look really good.
Yeah, and as well in terms of, obviously you've just mentioned the talent that you've got on this card, but there's also a lot of talent that aren't on this card as well that you've got at the gym. So if it's sort of being able to take that sort of next generation and be able to be sort of a part of their journey as well as your own, what is that sort of like, being able to watch them? Does it sort of remind you as when you were younger as well, some of them, or is it sort of one of those things?
It does. It reminds me a lot of the early days, but the fortunate thing is Jimmy and I were around to make all those mistakes for them, you know what I mean? Like, we've done the training camp mistakes, the weight cut mistakes, the on fight day, eating too much, drinking too much, not, you know, like there's loads and loads of mistakes you can make. The fact that Jimmy and I have already done it makes it a bit easier for these guys because we can advise them along the way. But to be honest, it's nice to see them learning so quickly as well. Like you know, back in the old roughhouse days, we had to work like hard to get any information because MMA was really young at the time. You know, we have to travel up and down and stuff. Whereas these guys come into the gym, and between Jimmy and I and Joe Taylor, the jiu-jitsu coach, we can give them everything they need. So that's a nice change from my day, that's for sure.
Yep. And as you mentioned there, in terms of your day as well, what would you say is the biggest change, obviously, in amateur MMA from when it was early in each year to now as well? Because obviously there's a big discrepancy between the skill level then to that there as well.
Yeah, it's massive. I mean, you know, if I think back to my amateur career, I mean, so I did a lot of taekwondo and Muay Thai and kickboxing, but when it comes to MMA, the only option I had was an event called KSBO, which was knockdown sport budo, and that was 1 5-minute round on mats in a sports hall with no head strikes. Yeah. And as a striker, it just didn't work out for me. The fact that they've got shows like BMF and Golden Ticket and Almighty and all the other shows, Cage Warriors Academy and stuff, it gives these amateur and semi-pro fighters an opportunity to be able to like experience a show before they actually turn pro. And that was the thing, like there's nothing that feels like walking out to one of these shows. When you're walking out, it makes no difference to you whether you're amateur or pro. The experience feels the same, and that's what these young fighters are getting. And we didn't get that back in the day. You know, the first time I walked out on a show like this was my pro debut in 2004, and I still felt like I had no idea really what I was doing.
And then in terms of, as you mentioned, obviously it has come a long way, but still to this day, obviously, as an amateur fighter, there's a lot of stuff that they have to do behind the scenes with the sponsorships, the whole, usually some are working part-time jobs or full-time jobs as well as the fighting. And obviously there's got groups like Sponsor Out, which obviously they provide fighters with sponsorships as well. But is that something that's still just as important now as it was then? And do you think, in a sense, it's easier for fighters to sort of get that sort of sponsorships that they need to help fund their amateur careers, and even early on the regional scene, the pro careers as well?
It's definitely easier now. I mean, social media is a thing now, and that is a lifeline to your fans and to your market, to your demographic. I mean, I had a MySpace page back in the day, and that was, you know, it was MySpace, it was the Cage Warriors forum. There wasn't really any kind of way of promoting yourself, especially, you know, on regional shows like this. It's a big benefit now for these guys to be able to, see the greats like Conor McGregor doing it and how they've marketed themselves, and be able to train full time and have great sponsors that support them. I mean, we're still working towards that with this amateur team, but we've got Outlaw Rum, we've got 360 Injury Clinic, Rigor, Mercedes, X-Brain. You know, we've got a few sponsors on board that are supporting the team, but we didn't have those back in the day. If I needed protein, I would buy it. If I needed some money for something, I'd have to work and earn it. These organisations now, they're supporting the fighters, and they get that exposure through their social media, which we didn't have back in the day.
Yep. And then finally from me, obviously, the gym's journey, they've come a long way as well. And in sort of like the last 6 months have come extremely quickly and a long way as well. So if you had to say the overall goal for the whole gym in total, what would that look like to you? Or is that something that you don't even know yourself as of yet?
No, I have a pretty good idea of what I'm trying to achieve with this team, to be honest. I mean, myself and Jimmy and Paul Daly, Andre Winner, we set a high standard for Roughhouse back in the day. And the most important thing for me is making sure that this team lives up to that name. Because we sacrificed a lot, we worked hard to build that name, you know, to have an associated of a bit of fear that comes with it. You know, you fight someone out of Roughhouse, it's going to be a hard night regardless. And you know, you've mentioned some of the guys on the team, the likes of Tom Owen, and we've got some animals on the team coming through. They're going to be better than Jimmy and I ever were. We've just got to make sure that they're as aggressive and as brutal as we were back in the day.
Yeah, well, that is everything from me. I really appreciate your time, buddy. Obviously, I'm hoping for a successful night for your gym
Thank you.
and just a successful future for the gym in general. Thank you.
Thank you, mate. Good talking to you.
Good talking to you.